welcome everybody to our first podcast for the month of February. And I'm here as always with my co-host, Gary Benoit, the amazing author of the book A Call for Service. Gary's a retired police officer, an author, a speaker, licensed in the financial industry, and of course, my amazing podcast host. And we are coming together today. My name is Maeve Langford. I'm with you from Cork in Ireland. Gary is all the way across the Atlantic in Alberta,
Mhm.
Canada. And we are coming together today for an episode all about love, the theme of love, and what
Correct.
does that mean?
Right.
Valentine's Day is just around the corner. And we'll speak to that too, a little bit about romantic love. But for you, Gary, when we think of, full spectrum life, full spectrum living, where does love
Yeah,
come in all of that?
I think it's in everything we do. And when you think about love, I think the question that I always comes up for me, and it's been one that's been forefront. It's a quite a powerful question. It's what would love do here, and that's in all situations in life, right? And ultimately, we're going to build on that as we go through today. But truthfully, it's just about showing up and because we never really know what people's situations are,
Yeah.
and we often are quick to judge, and that is just human nature, right? That judgment. You have an interaction with someone, and it's not your preference, and it's maybe that person was rude, or and you react in a certain way, and maybe that wasn't favorable either. And so, I mean, it happens to everybody. I mean, I'm guilty of this as well. You're driving down the road, someone cuts you off, and you're kind of already in
Yeah.
a bit of a moment, and you just have a comment like, what's that guy doing? What's that person doing? Like, why are they got to drive like a jerk? And truthfully, we don't really know what's got that person driving the way he's driving or she's driving. Maybe they're rushing to the hospital because,
Yeah.
right, that family member has been seriously injured in a car accident or they have a heart attack or some other type of medical incident where they're trying to get to their loved one. I don't know. Right. So I think it's just about what we'd love to hear in that moment because it's very easy to go and just categorize that behavior as what it is. Right. So, and it does take the charge out of it for us when we have that ability.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I was sharing with you a story that Mary Morrissey, one of my great mentors, used to share with us in our training. And she used to talk about, and she's a very, very honest, humble woman in many respects. And because she shared this story about being in a checkout store, right, a grocery store, and the woman she kind of felt was really off and kind of rude with her. And then she's walking out to the car, and there's a young guy bringing out the bags of groceries with her. And Mary said, like, she was really off, right? And the young guy said, yeah, I know she's not herself today. And he said, that she really needed to not be at work, that her son had come off a motorbike and was in hospital and waiting surgery, and that she couldn't afford to not work. And Mary said, like, in that moment, she was like, oh my gosh, like if I knew that, I wouldn't have felt reactive towards the lady at all.
Right.
And not that she was saying, I should have been told that, but she was saying if I knew that, I'd be different, I'd respond differently. So she said, why not just go to saying, well, if I knew the full story, I'd be understanding, I'd be kind, I'd be compassionate. So let's just go direct to the compassion piece,
Hmm.
and that question of, well, what would love do here? And I think of her so often in exactly those scenarios that, you're caught up in the traffic, or, I don't know, somebody just is snarky for whatever reason, or something just doesn't go your way. And just, to have that capacity to say, okay, I can react, or I can just take a breath and pause, and that great question, what would love do here? And I think when we respond more and more from that place of love,
Hmm.
just the impact it has on the quality of your own life and your own lived experience and the quality of your relationships,
Absolutely.
it's really transformative. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, you think about all the interactions that we have in a day. Usually we're out there. If we're out, there's lots of interactions. There's lots of opportunity to interact with different people. And depending on what you do in your work, maybe you are going to work and there are those people that, because really, how deeply do you know everybody that you're working with?
Exactly.
It's a great question. I don't really know. Like I don't really know what everybody's experiencing at home.
For sure.
In my career as a police officer, I mean, I had thousands and thousands of what they would categorize as officer, public, or officer violator contacts, right? We had lots of those moments where we were in contact with people in their homes and different things. And there were so many moments. I mean, and I wasn't great at this when I was early on in my career. I mean, I didn't have the awareness level. I wasn't at that level of awareness to have a different thought pattern. I kind of looking back, I mean, there's a moment where I'm like, man, if I would have had this, maybe I would have done that just a little bit differently, right? And there's lots of times you go into people's homes, you know they're having a bad day because they're calling you for one, right? They're calling the cops. It's
Mm.
a bad day. But ultimately, there's lots of times we deal with people that we're not going to them. We just run across them or whatever, and they have some type of reaction to you showing up, right? And you're in contact with people, and really, if with the awareness of the idea that I don't really truly understand what people are going through, I don't know what else is happening. Even with my coworkers, right? You have coworkers at work,
Yeah,
right? They come in, you don't really know what happened at the in the home that morning.
yeah,
Were they just in a fight with someone? Did they have bad news given from their parents? Did they have who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of things that we don't know.
yeah,
And they're not necessarily going to share it with us because it's maybe private information or they're trying to process themselves. And so we don't need to know the whole story to be able to go to love, right?
yeah,
We don't need that background to do that. I mean, if we had the background, we would go there to compassion,
yeah,
to love, to caring, understanding,
yeah,
right? But we don't need that. We shouldn't require that to go there. We should just, because I think that's how you make the world a better place, right? We want to make the world a nicer, better place to be in. And if we just went to love all the
yeah,
time, you know, then that's really cool, right? So that those contacts really truly we don't know, and we get the ability to do that, and that's where we can brighten the world.
yeah. And I think it's like, I don't know if we've used this phrase here with listeners, but that making an advanced decision that I'm going to bring love. I'm going to be a
Great
person who
comment.
brings a perspective of love.
Yes, love that.
So we're not just, reacting to the situation and do I feel like it, or, do I like this person enough to be willing to go there for them? No, I am a person who shows up with love.
Hmm.
And and I think maybe to say at this point as well that love, especially, I mean, I'd like for us to be considering today that, that could be love of self, love of
Hmm.
others, love
Hmm.
of the environment, it's all encompassing. But that loving, whether it's loving our kids, loving our spouse, loving ourselves, it isn't always just kind of soft and fluffy. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like
Hmm.
and I think of this mostly in the context of myself that, there's things I want to do. I want to get fitter and eat healthier and, achieve some things in my work this year. And sometimes, being really loving towards myself is holding firm for some of that and not, there's a part of you just, or well, maybe I speak for myself, there's a part of me just wants to throw myself on the couch or, watch Netflix rather than getting a wetsuit and getting the
Yep,
Atlantic
that's
this
fair.
time of the year.
Yep, that's a fair
Yeah, so
statement.
that yeah, so part of me wants that, but if I'm really bringing love to myself in that moment, it's not to give in to that all the time, but
Right.
to be able to say no. The woman in my vision, she's a swimmer and she gets out there and she does those things. Or with our kids sometimes like. And I used to say this to my boys when they were young and, arguing about the healthy option and,
Right.
there's a part of you, it's just easier to go for chips and sausages every
Yeah,
day.
fair.
And nothing against chips and sausages, but nothing is good as the option all the time.
Right.
And I'd be kind of saying, sometimes we can do that, but some days we have the boring veg and the less
Yeah.
interesting version of the potato because it's healthier for us. And
Right.
and love wants my love wanted my kids to be
Be
healthy.
healthy.
So
Yeah.
so we hold the line sometimes.
And I
And
think, I
that's a
mean,
form of love too.
absolutely. I think that's, and that I got, people may call it tough love or whatever you may want to quote it, but I think it's
Yeah.
not so much the tough love piece. Like tough love can look at different things for, but it's really you asked like a question, or you hinted at the question is how do you want to show up today? How are you
Yeah.
showing up for yourself? How does the person in your vision, because that's what we're doing here. We're looking at our vision. We're living from our vision. That's the idea. I was recently on a call with one of, well, with our coach and mentor, and she was talking about, and this is something that hit me really more effectively, or hit me like harder this time. It kind of sunk in deeper. Was
Mhm.
coming from your vision, the idea that you have to, look at your vision and who are you going to be all the time as best you can. How are you going to show up from your vision? And then
Yeah.
truthfully, if that's part of it, then ultimately that's about, well, it's a kind, I want to be a kind, compassionate, confident person of increase.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so to do that, I have to be a little more mindful about reducing the judgment and going to straight to that,
Yeah.
right? As well as sticking to the things that are important to me. So if
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to, my goal is to, maybe it's to lose some weight. I got to be harder on myself with going to the pantry and getting the treat, right? Nope. That's
Yeah.
there. I'm not touching that. I'm walking past the treat. I'm going for an apple, or I'm going for a
Yeah.
vegetable or whatever, something else, right? And so, and I think
Yeah.
that's the toughness side of the love piece is that you can do that in a way that feels really good to it. It's not like you have to like,
Yeah, and it can feel like
you know what I'm saying?
self-love, right? That
Yeah.
I'm loving myself healthier and I'm loving myself
Hmm.
fitter and I'm willing to make tough calls and choices in service of that.
Hmm.
And
Right.
it's taken me a very long time to learn that, I have to say, for myself.
Absolutely. And not because I'm the same way. Like it's taken me a lot of repetition, a lot of like,
Yeah,
there's a lot of that going on. Even when, because we know that things don't always go our way.
yeah,
Right. And that's okay.
yeah,
And so you got to have that self-compassion in that moment. And that way, if you can have self-compassion, then you can have compassion for other people too. Right. If you can be because
yes,
I think we can be hardest
absolutely.
on ourselves, to be honest with you. Right.
I would agree.
Right. And
Yeah,
and ultimately, like as we have compassion for ourselves, we can have compassion for others. And then, like I say, all of our reactions and interactions with people. I mean, if just if you're 1% better in that way, how much less stress would you have in your life? How much less, right?
yeah, right.
Right. Because ultimately we raise our stress level by reacting and responding right quickly and having
Yeah,
those judgmental feelings. If we were just to do that at 1% better, you'd reduce that level of stress, right? So this is
yeah,
about transforming your whole life. We're talking about holistic health, right? It's all four quadrants, it's all of our relationships. And there's also a piece that's also the romantic side of it, right? There's the romantic relationships, the relationships that we're in that mean the most to us.
yeah.
It's important to show up there too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that
Yeah.
in our later podcast this month. And I suppose for me, that whole romantic side of things, and I mean it's great, right? We all
Hmm.
love to feel loved up. Um, but it's again, it's that kind of piece that it doesn't have to be just romance and roses all
Mm.
the time. I mean, and for some of us, we want that more or less than others. Some people that's what it's all about, and for others, it's less about that. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the connection piece, I suppose, and
Yeah.
feeling that somebody else's needs are at least as important and maybe often more important than your own, and being able to show up for somebody and have that kind of relationship with somebody is very special in our
Hmm.
lives. And I mean, it's not the be all and end all of everything, but it can be a very special
Hmm.
relationship. So
Hmm.
in the context of Valentine's Day being around the corner, do
Yes.
you want to say anything about romance and love
Well,
and what
I
love means in those circumstances?
I just want to, I want to start by prefacing that we were curious before we did this. I wanted to know what were the origins of Valentine's Day? Like ultimately
Sure.
what it's grown into is what it is. But when I did some research, it traces right back to 6th century before Christ, BC. Like that's where the roots of this kind of like there's a lot of mythology around it. There's a lot of different ideas around it as it's gone on through the years. It's what the 18th century would think,
Centuries. Yeah.
centuries of time, right? And so the 18th century is when things really came to the idea of like giving notes of affection or cards of affection to people. And so it's really interesting how, you know, something that we have in today that people may call commercialized, it's because it has become very a commercial moment, right? When you think about If you want to show up for your loved one, for example, you want to buy roses on Valentine's Day, you're going to pay 3 times more for those roses on Valentine's Day than you are the day after. Right?
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, there's been some capitalism that's jumped on board here to take advantage of that in their businesses, which isn't a terrible thing. But it's just interesting how you don't have to do the extravagant show either. I don't think. I think
Yeah.
Valentine's Day for myself, my wife, and I, it's really a nothing day for us, truthfully. Well, we don't do anything really any differently because truly we try to show up every day as we can, as best we can for each other, right? So it doesn't, well, the one day of the year doesn't make or break that. But I still think it's a great reminder that those ones that are around, like that's what I use it for. It's kind of a marker. Yeah, don't forget that there's people in your life that you really care
Yeah.
deeply about, and you know, um, let's just remember that this is something that people, it's a little special day. Just say, hey, thank you, or give an extra hug or extra snuggle or something that day to that person that you love.
Yeah.
Just because they are someone who you really care deeply about. And like I can do life on my own if I needed to, but I'd rather do it with her.
Yeah. Good for
Right?
you.
I would
Absolutely.
rather do life with her. And so, um, because she's really special to me and she helps me reach some goals and she pushes me and we're there for each other in those difficult
Yeah.
moments because it's a lot easier when you can lean on each other. And so, and we've been through some uh, times and we're going to talk about that in the next episode, but um, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I'd rather do it with her. And so I
Yeah.
just got to, just remember to show up for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
A little
Yeah,
bit? Yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
say to my husband too, you make me better,
Yeah.
you make me better. So, yeah, and wonderful to have an experience of that. And again, it isn't always with a spouse or a partner, but
No.
we can have friends or parents or siblings who just make us better, and we are so appreciative of them in our lives. And Valentine's Day is more associated with the partners and the spouses and the boyfriends and the girlfriends, but I think it's very easy to be cynical as well
Mm,
because it has become so commercialized. But like you say, it's just a reminder, like, am I really acknowledging these significant others in my life, or am I taking them for granted? And if the 14th of February isn't the day you want to celebrate them and mark the occasion, totally okay. But taking that reminder that it is a special thing to be
hmm
able to say to somebody how much they mean to you, and to remember to do that, and not to leave it even to once a year, but
Right.
to doing that and showing up regularly, yeah,
Yeah.
for each other.
And love's a very powerful thing. You think about love as like because ultimately we think about love and our mind goes to that romantic side of things, right? But it's more than that. Like it's so much more than that. And it's
Yeah.
if we have the ability to tap into love, I mean, really you have there's like almost infinite power in that, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's such
Yeah.
a connection to the infinite, to the because ultimately we're here on this planet having an experience and we're all spiritual beings and so I think love is such a strong thing for the spirit,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and I mean, oftentimes in our work and in our coaching, we talk about how like everything is love, right?
Mhm.
That the essence of everything is love. And again, I think the human side of us finds that challenging sometimes. And
Absolutely.
if we say, here, sometimes the language we would use is that, God is love or the universe is love. For some of us, God was not. That wasn't the God of our rearing. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
That,
yes.
that might have been a fearful person or energy, or a very judgmental
Yeah, yeah,
energy.
yeah.
So again, that's when we reference it here, that's not, we're talking about a kind of a loving, compassionate God as well, or presence or higher power that wants us to have everything that we could possibly
Right.
conceive of having
Yeah.
ourselves. And it's like that life force energy that's
hmm
flowing through us that's saying, grow and become and be, do, give, create. And
Yeah.
it wants everything that we could possibly want for ourselves. It wants that for us, and it's there to support us to have it as well. I was on a call today with my own clients, and we talked about I don't know if you would see this in Canada, Gary, but there's often, it's like a little postcard or a poster sometimes, and it's called Footprints, and it's expressed as a kind of a poem, and it's
Mm.
somebody
Hmm.
reflecting on their lives and saying, there's two footprints in the sand, and then the person is saying, I can't understand it. Like the worst and most challenging times in my
Yeah.
life, you deserted me and I was on my own. And God or Spirit is answering, saying, no, that's when I carried you.
Right.
That's why there's only one set of footprints. And I see it that way. Sometimes, again, if you think of the Valentine's context, and if we're single or not in a relationship, it's kind of like we're less than in some way. Or that's how it might feel. And I think like we're never on our own. We're in this relationship or partnership with the infinite that's amazing.
Mhm.
And we are always supported and guided and carried. And the human side of us doesn't always feel that. I've said to you earlier, I've had some challenges this month.
For
It
sure.
hasn't always felt wonderful. And there is this awareness that I'm not alone, that there is guidance and infinite available to me and in me. And that, I suppose it's kind of coming back to this idea. I don't need anything. Like you said, you can live life on your own, but you prefer to be with Colette, and that's a choice.
Hmm.
But you're not defined by it or
Correct.
or anything else. And
Yeah.
it's the same for all of us. And the more we know that and feel that inner love, and we're not going outside of ourselves to look for it, the more we feel it in all our relationships, I think.
And you said something really key there, going outside. So let's, often we once again, we're talking about transformation. We're talking about growing into this vision of yourself, whatever that is for you that's listening. We want to have vision-based living. We want to live from that vision, right? But the conditions that we've grown up then that's become our operating system currently, right? That outside thing that we go to, the outside condition for our happiness, that outside condition to show us love, that outside condition, and you fill in the blank, is where we often go,
Yeah.
right? So going outside of us to get the love to make us feel worthy. Well, the the goal here for all of us is to know that we are so much more than what we believe we are, and we live from the vision that I am already worthy. I have everything I need inside of me to be successful,
Yeah.
and that inner security, like you know, it when I think about the work and I think about what this does, as we grow and as we transition, think about love, and I mean, I've come to really love who I am. I believe that this work is a foundation for my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I always talk about resiliency. Resiliency is a big topic of discussion for me. And resiliency, I think, if a resiliency cup, you got to have a good foundation to be able to, unload some of the stuff, especially in the first responder world, right? That's a big piece of it. And unloading that and really having a system to deal with the stress that comes with that particular profession, those professions that are inside in that realm. But inside, you need to have a foundation for your soul. And that's what this is. It gives you that foundation for
Yeah.
your soul so that you can have all the quantum leaps, all the security you need to do life like you do life, right? You don't need a partner to have that fulfillment. You don't need an outside condition to fulfill you. You're already fulfilled.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what love can do for you. That's what love for
Yeah.
yourself can do. And by
Yeah.
tapping into what would love do here all the time, how do you show up for yourself and how do you show up for
Yeah.
other people? Right.
Yeah.
Right. That is the goal. And really, truly, that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think just as you're saying there, how do I show up for myself and how do I show up for other people? There is certainly in Ireland, I would have grown up with a kind of, you do things for others before yourself, and that, an
Hmm.
element of, it's
Hmm.
selfish to put yourself
Hmm.
first, or to, to kind of want your own needs to be met first. And I think like there's a huge culture there are gender issues there's all sorts going on in that space. But again, for all of us today, to really come back to that awareness that you can't pour from an empty cup, that, and we talk in our work, about being a person of increase, being a person of increase doesn't mean being a doormat,
Hmm.
and that it's everybody else before me. And I think being a person of increase really is about looking after yourself so that you can be that person, so that you
Yeah,
can give to others, so that you can be in service. And some of that, it's more a mindset shift than about a doing thing.
correct,
Um, so so really coming from that space of, I often say, you can't give what you don't have, right? So
correct.
you want to give that love, that compassion, that kindness to yourself so that you even know what that feels like, and then you can give to
Correct.
others.
Yeah.
And also you're not going to others needing it from them. You might want help or support or assistance, but it's not like you have to love me to make me feel okay,
Right.
because you're already loved.
Yeah.
You bring that love to yourself, and
Yeah.
and you tune to the source of all love within
Right.
you, and then it's a different experience for
Yeah.
all parties.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And really, like you think about the connection you can have with people by doing that. How much deeper could that connection be? Right. Like
exactly.
it's not like I think when you start to build relationships and you have that ability to have that connection, and that's pretty special in that way.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Um, a thought came to me when you were talking about, you work on yourself here, so before you can give, because you can't give what you don't have. It's
Mm-hmm.
no different than being in an airplane when they give you the instructions when the mask falls down from the ceiling. If it's pressurization goes in the cabin, the first thing you do is put your own mask on,
Yeah,
because if you don't put your own mask on, you're not going to have the oxygen or the ability to help the next person beside you.
yeah.
And I think I know it's such a simple analogy, but truthfully, that's what this is. This is what can do for you. If you tap into what love can do for you, that's what it can do. It can give you the ability to really lean out for others.
And
You know,
show up.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know why, but I teach a program sometimes called Radical Well-being. And within that, we talk about well-being being physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And one of the quotes I always share on the spiritual side, and it links with kind of the emotional side as well, from who am I going to say, from the Dalai Lama. He says,
Mhm.
make kindness your religion.
Mhm.
And I just think, it's not about, being in a church or a synagogue, or, having a belief in a particular form of a deity, but it's like showing up. Just be kind, just to be compassionate, and whether that's to, feeding a stray animal, or sharing some of your abundance with somebody who has less than you, or whether
Mhm.
it's just being kind in how you think about other people, or being kind. I remember arguing with my husband and my kids about, like, turn off the tap when you're brushing your teeth, you're wasting water. And in Ireland, it's hard to think like that, because we have an abundance of water a lot of the time, and
Mhm.
more than we would want a lot of the time. But I was like, no, like, just think in terms of kindness, that I don't need to waste it, right?
Mhm.
I can use as much as I need, but I don't need to waste it either. So that willingness to just bring that kind of, I don't know, compassion, kindness, whatever,
Mhm.
whatever people might see it slightly differently, and have slightly different words for it, but it is just coming to that space of generosity, and compassion and kindness, love. They're kind of interchangeable on one
Mhm.
level, maybe.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So if there was, for me, I got a few ideas, but like ultimately, for the people that are listening, for our listeners, for those that are like looking to implement this into their habits, into their daily kind of being, what are some of the things they could actually work on, like day to day? What are some day to day tangibles that they could actually work on that will give them the ability to sort of like incorporate this a little more easily into their life and into their relationships, into their workplace?
Yeah, and I think one of the ways I would suggest that is using that phrase advanced decision. So I'm making an advanced decision that I am going to show up as a person of increase, if that language speaks to you, or I'm making an advanced decision that I'm going to bring compassion and kindness no matter what, and I don't need to know all the facts first. I'm just choosing that I'm going to assume if I knew the facts, I would be compassionate. Therefore, I'm going to bring compassion.
Right.
And the more triggered you feel in a way, I would say to just, not to beat yourself up that you're getting triggered sometimes or that you get to into judgment or reactivity. I mean, it's going to happen. We're
Hmm.
human, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
in those moments to bring compassion to ourselves as well and just and then just say no, I choose. So, if I've had a cross word with my husband or my kids or my neighbor or my colleague that I can say, you know what, can we do a refresh on that?
Hmm.
I that's not how I wanted to be, and this is how I prefer to show up, and to
Right.
give ourselves permission to be vulnerable and to get it wrong and to ask for an apology and to try to make it right, okay? And without feeling like I have to be perfect, okay? We
Yeah.
don't we're never talking about perfection
No,
here.
of
It's
course
always
not.
about progress, but
Yeah.
and it kind of starts with a willingness, Gary. And like you said as well, we're our own harshest critics,
Yes.
and we're probably least compassionate to ourselves. So again, listening here today, really encouraging you to say, start with yourself, right? How can I bring more compassion to myself and more kindness to myself, and let that be the starting point even before we start to try to bring that and be that for
Hmm.
others.
Hmm. Yeah, I think what I would say in that same context is ask yourself some different questions when you're in those moments. When
Mm,
you have those moments, you want to, instead of reacting, just take a breath, ask the question, what would love do here? Or, um, you know, how do I want to show up? Ask yourself, well, how am I going to show up right this now in this moment? How will my vision respond in this way?
yeah.
And how do I want to be for others? How do I want to show up for others? And how do I want to show up for myself every day? How do I want to show up for myself every day? If you ask yourself those questions and you answer them every morning and you sort of have a vision for that, I think you're going to prepave a great day, right? You're going to prepave that
Exactly.
great day. So that's daily. If you
Yeah.
can just ask those questions and answer them honestly and how you would love to show up and just ask that and put it on a piece of paper and just say, I'm going to prepave, I'm going to show up all day long for people in this way,
Yeah.
and then things will go, I think will go smoother for you, and it becomes a habit and you're creating good routines. um so we're coming to the end and we've got a few minutes left here. Is there anything you want to add?
Can I add one more thing?
Absolutely, please
Yeah.
do.
So what came up for me, and I love his work, Don Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements, and if you're listening to us today and you're thinking, man, this is a high bar, like just to be that person of increased loving, compassionate all the time. I really want to just invite you to take on board what he says. One of the four agreements is to always do your best, which again, that can sound like a very high bar, but he's so good on this because he says that you're best on a day when you're feeling sick. You're best on a day where like your electricity's gone out. You're best on a day when, you know, all the chickens have come
You
home to
name it.
roost.
Yeah.
They're gonna change, right?
Yeah.
But when we say to ourselves, okay, like this is a tough day and I'm doing my best here, and it is genuinely your best, even though it's not your best compared to like the days when everything is perfect, but we're doing our best. It helps to kind of keep us out of self-criticism and self-judgment, and just be able to say, I did my best.
Mhm.
I don't need to have any regrets here. So really allowing all of us to know that it's not a single measure of love or compassion, but in those moments we do our best. We show up as love as best we can, and that's all that's ever asked,
Yeah.
and to be okay with that.
Right. Love it. All right. So we're gonna be finish here in a minute. I just want to talk about this is the month of love. We're gonna next episode, we're gonna talk about the five love languages. We're gonna get into that relationship piece and the kids and philo languages, how they show up in that way. I'm going to share some of what impact that particular book had on myself and my relationship, and some of the stuff that I was going through a number of years ago. And so I'll share some of that, as well as we'll just share some strategies around how we can implement those things coming in the future, right? The philo languages and how we can use it to our advantage to improve our situation in our relationships.
Yeah.
As well as always, is there anything upcoming for you in the world of Maeve Langford and the coaching? Is there anything new?
Well, there is, but I think I'm going to keep it as a
No
surprise,
problem. I love
actually. And
it.
I will have an announcement. I have for me, a big work goal from 2024 was to create a new offer and a new resource for people.
Okay.
And it's almost about to be live
Awesome.
in the world, but we will wait until it's actually live and
Okay.
available for people,
Sounds
and
good.
we'll announce that next
That's
time.
fantastic. As always, like I say, my book's on Amazon. I'd love for you guys to reach out and take a read if you feel inclined to. Of course, feel invited, not obligated to do that. And as always, we do my speaking calendar is open for the year. So if anybody are looking for a keynote speech or an education session on some of this stuff at their workplace or in their groups, please reach out by all means. I'd love to accommodate that if that was something that you would love to see. So
On
we're
both sides of the
at,
Atlantic,
and
right?
really anywhere in the world, yes. I mean, it doesn't matter if
Yes.
it's over there or here. I'm happy to get on a plane and travel and see the world as well. That'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, all right, thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys got something out of that. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you guys continue to follow and subscribe. Please share this with your friends and everybody you know as we continue to grow inside of this life change transformation podcast. So, thank you very much. And Maeve, as always, you're a star. Love your insights, and it's fantastic.
Here's to next time.